I told him after he continued yelling and screaming that he needs to get off this job site. He's no longer allowed on this property, and if he tries to step foot on this property again, we're gonna get a restraining order against him because it's unprofessional and it's unlikely. Welcome to this week's video where we're going to talk about straight edging, insulation, lathe, and a couple of other things that went on in this project and how we've gotten this far because we're right before drywall, which is, I think, the most interesting phase, right before the finishing phase. Let's talk about how we figured out what straight edging was and discovered that.
So yeah, we didn't know what straight edging was. We saw something on Instagram, somebody posted on a construction site that we're straight edging today.
Straight edging is a great way to make sure your walls are straight. It makes it easier for the drywall guys to level everything. We're doing level 5 drywall, which we'll talk about in the drywall video once we get to that point. But it makes it easier for them to level everything without using too much mud and putting in a lot more effort. You definitely want a straight edge. If you guys watch till the end of this video, you'll see that it's not that expensive and it's definitely worth it because of the aesthetic appeal that you'll get on your house.
Yeah, your drywall will end up looking a lot better. You won't see any bows in it or waviness by straight edging. That's why it's important.
Especially in a big area like this where you have these long straight walls and from the front to the back you have straight parallel views. It'll be really easy to tell if there's any bows, any gives, any takes inside of the walls. So you want to make sure to flatten all that out. We just flattened the whole house out, or straight edge the whole house out. But I think that's enough of that. Before Eddie takes us around the house and shows us what straight is, why don't you guys follow us on Instagram? Just like we get some of our information from Instagram, we're also sharing a lot of information on Instagram, so follow us there. If you guys are enjoying the content, make sure to hit that thumbs up so I can give you more information. And I promise you, if you don't hit that thumbs up, I'm not gonna let you know the price of everything.
So I'm standing in the garage with my handy dandy straight edge level. It's important to note that I'm only interested in the straight edge of this level. I'm not gonna use the bubbles. So over here, I'm in the garage. You can see the shear wall. The reason I'm standing here is because it's a lot easier to see than the rest of the house right now. You can see these cardboard little strips of paper. Our straight edger comes in, he puts a straight edge on the wall like this and checks for gaps. What's important to know is we don't want any gaps because that shows that the wall is bowed. He adds paper, different amounts in different spots. So right here there's 1, right here there's 2, down there there's 3 or 4. And that basically levels the wall straight with your straight edge. That's one way to do it on all the studs. The other way is to shave studs down. So over here you can see it looks like it's been shaved down. If you look at the top all the way to the bottom, all this has been ran with a planer, a hand planer, until he puts his straight edge down, checks it, and there's no gaps on his straight edge. Now let's jump inside where Sam will tell you about making walls plumb, which is very different than straight edging.
So let's talk about plumb walls, which is different from straight edging, but goes along with the same process. One of the things that Eddie didn't mention about straight edging is how we straight edge the ceilings, which I thought was very interesting. Because our ceilings are really high and they're vaulted, sloped up, they're very difficult to straight edge. So in order to do that, they basically put a nail on each end of the living space and tied a string all the way down, and they use that as their straight lines. It made their job a lot easier. It was really interesting how they did that, and they straight edged everything throughout the house. Once everything was straight edged, he mentioned that he had 2 problem areas. It was this exterior wall on this side of the living space, and then the wall on the other side of the living space. So in order to make these walls plumb, he was gonna need to buy a lot of plywood. It was a lot of extra work, and this is something that the framer should have done. Going back to the stage of framing, this is something that if you guys are in framing, you should definitely check before your roof rafters or ceiling joists are put in. You want to make sure that the walls are all plumb. They do not have to be straight, but they have to be plumb. And I'll explain to you guys what plumb is here in a second. Our 2 main issues were this wall and the other wall, and there was only so much he could do. Our framer couldn't fix it, so he said, hey, whatever the cost is to make these walls plumb, I'll eat that cost. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. Let me explain to you guys what plumb is. this wall goes like this. So if you look at the bubble, you'll see it's off level. It's not level. That means this wall is bowing out slightly. In order to fix this, they need to add layers of plywood and bring it to the level of plumb. Now, while they're also making these walls plumb, they're also straight edging them at the same time. If you guys look over here, after, what is that, 2 layers of plywood, some shading down, they brought it all to being plumb. They did that for this entire wall. They did it for the entire center wall. It took a lot of time and a lot of material, so it's definitely something you want to avoid. It's a lesson learned from us to make sure that we check the work of the subcontractors as they're working on our job site. Another key fact you want to make sure to take into account is when you straight edge the house. Whenever you straight edge, you want to drywall as quickly as possible. Depending on where you are in the country, they're going to have different time periods based on weather, humidity, and a couple of other factors, what season you're in, all those things. Your straight edger will let you know. The reason they want to do this in a timely manner is because the walls will continue to bow, shape shift, and move, and you want to avoid as much of that as possible. So our straight edger told us, hey, you need to drywall within a month. So I'll give you a month. If in that time period I need to come back and fix anything, I'll do that. But if you guys leave the walls open for 2, 3, 4 months, I can't come back. It's a whole different job. I got to redo the entire job. So you want to make sure you do this in a timely manner. Now that we're ready to drywall, is there any other steps we need to take before we drywall?
Yeah, we got to do the stucco lath coat so we can close in the house to the exterior, and we got to put in insulation.
So let's talk about the lath, and then we'll jump back inside and talk about the insulation.
So we're in the back of the house where we're going to talk about the lath of the stucco. So there's a lot of different types of stucco. There's smooth finish, sand finish, cat face finish, Santa Barbara finish, California finish, many different kinds of stucco. What's popular around here is the sand type or the smooth type. So what did we decide to do here, Sam?
So a couple of factors. Smooth is actually a much more expensive finish. It's much more difficult to do. We decided to do smooth in the front and the back of the house and sand on the side. As far as sand goes, there's a couple different variations. There's 1630, 2030, 3030. This is how rough you want the sand versus how smooth. We went with the 2030, which is a much finer sand. It gives you a much closer to smooth finish. Based on the price difference, the reason we only decided to do smooth in the front and the back is to save money, taking into account that, hey, nobody really travels the side of the houses, nobody really sees the side of the houses. What you see is the front of the house and the rear of the house. Another problem with smooth finish stucco is that it can definitely crack. So we're putting in a lot of metal channels, which adds to the aesthetic appeal and the modern feel of the home, but it also helps with cracking and preventing that. What you see behind me is the lath coat, which is the first coat that they put on. Basically what they do is they come out here, they throw out all these scaffoldings all the way around the house. We cleaned up a couple of them because we needed room to move around. But they basically roll out this black paper, they roll out this mesh, they staple it all the way around. They also have a different type of mesh that they put up here, which is for our eaves, where we're also gonna have stucco. We are not gonna wrap around our stucco. Unfortunately, we didn't plan ahead properly for that. Eddie, what are the other steps that we take after we wrap the house in order to seal the inside from the exterior? And why can't we go ahead and put on our scratch coat, which is the second coat?
So the reason we don't want to put on the actual stucco yet is because we need to finish our work on the inside, mainly the drywall. After you insulate and put up your drywall, when they're putting it up, they're going to use impact drills, and the drywall weighs a lot. That can actually shift the house a little bit. If you already have your stucco up and the house shifts, it's definitely going to crack the stucco. So we seal the house with the black paper, as you see here. You finish up the inside, you get it all drywalled before you call your stucco guy back to start stuccoing.
Another layer of protection that we did on the exterior is sealing all the nail holes and staples. So they went around with a sealant. You could see the white spots. They used a lot of black caulking as well to seal everything up so there's no holes protruding to the inside. The best way to check this is after they wrap the house, you go inside the house before the insulation and check for P-holes of light.
So let's jump inside and talk about the insulation.
Our Title 24 had 3 callouts in terms of insulation. We had our floor insulation, our exterior walls, and our roof rafters / attic, depending on the area of the house that you're in. We already talked about the floor. I honestly don't remember the R rating. I think it was R19, but let's talk about the walls and the ceilings. We have R19 in the walls. We have 6-inch exterior studs, and the batt insulation comes in at about 5.5 inches, so it fits perfectly snug between joists and doesn't protrude out into the drywall. As far as our attic / roof rafter spaces, We have an R30 rating, which is a much higher rating, which in turn requires much more space for that bat insulation. So we have 10-inch bat insulation, we have 12-inch roof rafters, 10-inch ceiling joists. Everything kind of works out perfectly in terms of all that. Outside of the Title 24 requirements, the only things that are left is things that you want to do to protect the interior of your home from the exterior weather and to insulate the interior. A few of the extra steps that we took is foam beading for any protrusions from the exterior to the interior, whether it was our electrical, our plumbing, or any other mechanical stuff that came in from the outside to the inside. We made sure to spray foam all the way around it. Also, any joints from the outside to the inside. So the floor joists, the bottom plates, the top plates, anywhere there's a seam where air can play, we basically foamed all of that in. This is an extra step. I don't think it's required, but we'll find out when the Hearse Tester gets here later. But before we get to that, let's talk about the extra steps we took on the inside in terms of interior insulation. So Eddie, why don't you walk them around and show them what we did?
So Sam talked to you guys about what's required on our Title 24, which includes all of our attic space, which is up here. We had to insulate all of that, but we went ahead and insulated more than just that. Some of the benefits you get from insulation is sound dampening. One of the main things we were thinking of is let's sound dampen the laundry room from the rest of the house. We want to separate that so you don't hear the laundry machine noises.
So wait, Eddie, you go from something like this to something like this?
Yeah, just like that. By insulating all the rooms, you sound dampen all the noises from room to room. So nobody can hear what's going on in this bedroom or that bedroom or this bathroom or that bathroom. I want to thank Mike Stone from True Team California, the guys who insulated this place. They came out here, did a great job insulating everything. Now with all the insulation done, we have our Hearse energy tester coming out in about an hour. We're going to get that done and tell you guys how that went.
We just wrapped up with our Hearse Tester. He came in, very quick and painless process. Checked everything, checked the insulation, the foam beading around the inseams. I guess that's something that's required and not just something that we asked for. We did definitely ask for it as an addition, but it ended up being something that's required, so that's interesting. He checked all the windows and stuff, everything else he needed to. He was in and out of here like 15 minutes, so it was a very painless process. What wasn't painless is the issue that we had with the inspector yesterday. So our inspector, we've kind of held it behind the closed doors, but he's been very, very, very problematic with us since the beginning of this job. We originally assumed that this is how it was, right? Because we have no experience, but...
Yeah, so we just thought that this is how the inspection process goes. They come out here, they tell you, hey, you gotta fix this thing. Then they come back, tell you they fixed another thing. The thing is, what we realized last week, our inspector was out of town, he was on vacation or something, and we had an inspection. So they send out somebody else.
Two inspections,
sorry. And those two inspectors were different than our normal inspector. They said, hey, that's not how this process normally works. We come out here for an inspection, we're supposed to give you all the corrections all at once, and then you fix all those things, we come back, we check that you fixed those things, and we sign off. That's not what's been happening for us.
So the straw that broke the camel's back was actually the Hearse testing. So our inspector, I had specifically asked him, I said, hey, we need to go through this insulation drywall process very quickly to avoid any bowing, moving, adjusting of the lumber in the house because we straight edged. So I said, what do we need to do? He said, look, get all this done, get all your rough signed, get your rough framing signed. Once you get that signed, throw in your insulation, call me back, I'll sign off on insulation, you can drywall the next day. So right now, this is a Wednesday and we're scheduled to drywall on Monday, but unfortunately he showed up on Tuesday and said, hey, where's your QII?
What's a QII?
That's news to me, never heard of it, never mentioned it to me. So he flips through our plans and he goes, look, I wrote QII here, which he had written there, but he had never told us that he had written it there and just kind of scribbled it, and he scribbles a lot on our plans, so I figured that's him taking notes for himself. He said, nope, your Title 24 calls out for QII, so you need a Hearse tester out here to verify the insulation. Now, our insulators were very professional and they let us know that Hearse testers do not come out, they do not check these things. They verify with the licensed contracted installer the material that they used. So they just take photos and stuff, and we're documenting everything with videos. And we've also taken a bunch of extra steps to insulate this house. We're kind of doing more than is expected or required of us, but we're doing it the right way. Unfortunately, when he brought that up, I said, look, this is it. I'm done. I'm like, you never told us this. You show up the day of, you don't check anything, you go straight for this, you knew what you were doing. You just keep causing delays in this project. If we needed Hearse testing, you should have had them come out to check the floor insulation, but you never did that. And you also created delays there. Bunch of problems. He kept going, nope, you gotta listen to me, you gotta listen to me, you gotta do things the way I'm saying. He has this very know-it-all attitude with us, and aside from all that, he's very demeaning. He talks down to us, very disrespectful and unprofessional. All these problems are something that we're not going to continue to deal with at this point, especially knowing that that's not a common practice in the department. It's unfortunate that there's a bad egg, and it's unfortunate that on our first project, we had to deal with him. We called a supervisor. We're going to have a supervisor come out here on Friday, and we're going to make sure that he no longer comes on our job site. I told him after he continued yelling and screaming that he needs to get off this job site. He's no longer allowed on this property, and if he tries to step foot on this property again, we're going to get a restraining order against him because it's unprofessional and it's unlikely. So basically that brings us to right now. I told him to get off the job site, and he's not coming back on this job site. And it is what it is, and we hope to get a better inspector. If we have to deal with the supervisor, that's perfectly fine. I want to build this house correctly and up to code, but I don't want delays on this job site for absolutely no reason, and no intentional delays just to hurt our job site.
So with all that said, now let's get into our pricing for all the stuff that we talked about in this video.
So let's start with the straight edging. The straight edging and plumbness of the walls, we kind of separated those two because plumb is not something that a straight edger necessarily does, but it became part of his job description based on the things that came up. To straight edge the whole house was $2,000. That's including all the ceilings and every single square inch of every single wall in this house. Aside from that $2,000, we also paid $1,500. That included making the exterior walls plumb that were not plumb and all the doorways plumb. This gives you a great pocket for your doors to slide into, and that way you don't have crooked doors and crooked doorways.
Besides that, the stucco, we are paying $18,000 total for all the stucco. That includes smooth on the front and the back and sand finish on the sides. If we did smooth all around, it was going to be an extra $3,000, but we decided we can spend that $3,000 elsewhere since nobody really goes to the side yards.
Yeah, I think that $3,000 is gonna have more added value in the inside of the home than it was on the sides of the house. From there, we go into the installation. Now, like we told you, we got multiple quotes for the installation. They all fell in like the same exact ballpark of $4,500. I don't think he was the cheapest guy. I think there was a guy that was $100 less, but he seemed to be more informative, more professional, and gave us a lot more information. So once again, Mike Stone, appreciate you. Thank you to True Team California. Again, we're gonna include their information down at the bottom. If you guys enjoyed today's video, look at that big, beautiful number of how much we've spent so far, and that number is only climbing every single episode. Next week, we're gonna talk about the problems we face on our job site due to poor planning, dealing with the wrong sums, which leads to me and Eddie doing manual labor on this job site and doing things we have no idea how to do, but we're learning as we go. Make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button, notification bell if you're not subscribed, subscribe down below, and we'll see you guys next week.